Hello cyberspace, my name is Garrett Mills and welcome to episode 2 in my Getting Started with Arduino tutorial. In this episode we're going to take a look at wiring up a basic LED to be controlled from the Arduino. You can see I've got the circuit diagrammed out here for you. If you haven't already, you can click the I in the top right hand corner to go back and watch episode 1 of this series where I walked through getting the software environment set up so that we can program the Arduino. But in this episode, I'm assuming you've done that already and we're going to just jump right in. So without further ado, let's get started. So I've got the breadboard here, and you can see there's two main areas on it. There's the side rails on the other side, and then the actual circuit design, and they're separated by this bar of plastic in the middle. So these side rails here, each side contains two side rails, a positive rail and a negative rail. And these rails are connected all the way down. So this hole is connected to all the other holes in this column, all the way down the side of the board. The same for the negative rail, but the two rails are not connected. So this column and this column are two separate connections, and the same on this side. And then in the center, each row of these is connected. So all of this row are connected to each other, all of this row are connected to each other. But the rows don't cross the divide. So this row and this row are not connected to each other. And so this lets us have access to the pins on any device throughout an entire row. So we can connect multiple things together, and then obviously throughout the different rows, we can use the rails to connect them to our power source. So taking a look at the actual Arduino now, I've got an Arduino Uno is what I will be using for these tutorials. So if we take a look at it, we can see that there's a few different components to note. So the first, of course, is this chip. This chip is the processor for the Arduino. It contains the firmware, and it's what actually executes your code. Then flanking it on either side of the chip are two groups of pins. These are female pins, and these pins allow you to access input and output from this chip. So taking a look on the left side, if you're holding it like this, we've got analog pins which just directly correspond to other pins on the chip. Then we've got ground pins, are positive out, so 5 volt and 1.3 volt, a reset pin, and then some other pins used for I/O. And then taking a look at the other side, we've got digital pins. These pins are managed from inside the firmware, so we've got 0 through 13 digital pins, a ground pin, and then just some more advanced pins. And then taking a look around on this side, we've got a reset button. This will restart the firmware and reset your program from the beginning. And then on this side, we've got a USB 2.0B connector, and then power input. Alright, so for our first circuit, we're just going to build a basic circuit that we can use to turn an LED on and off from the Arduino. So to do that, we need to wire up the LED. So taking a look at this LED, you can see that on one side, one of the pins is longer than the other. This is the positive side. It is important to note this because LEDs only work one way, and so it's important to make sure that you've got them wired up. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate those pins from each other just a little bit so it makes it easier to work with. And we're going to plug it in such a way that one pin is in one horizontal row and another pin is in a different horizontal row, so that we can access each pin's row individually. There, we also need to put a resistor on the LED. So LEDs have to have resistors. If you just supply them direct current from the Pi, they can explode. So that's a thing to note. So I've just got a 330 ohm resistor that's orange, orange, brown if you've got a kit. And we're just going to bend this so that it fits a little better. And we're going to check the longer pin is the positive side. We're going to plug the resistor, it doesn't matter which way, we're going to plug one pin of the resistor into the same rail as the negative pin, the shorter pin of the LED, and then we're going to plug the other end of that resistor into the negative rail on the side rails of our breadboard. Then we're going to take one of these short connector cables. It's got a male-to-male end on it. We're going to plug one end of it in any pin in the negative rail, and then we're going to plug the other end into the ground pin of the Raspberry Pi. Now, so our LED has a negative, it has a ground connection via resistor to the Pi, so now it needs a positive connection. So the positive connection we want to plug into, obviously, the longer pin's rail, so the same horizontal row as the longer pin of the LED. And then we're going to take this wire and we're going to plug it into one of the digital pins on this side of the Pi. We're going to plug it into pin 8. It doesn't particularly matter which pin, we can adjust it in software, but for our purposes I've selected pin 8. So there we go, we've got a basic LED diagram circuit that we are going to be able to control from the Raspberry Pi. So just taking a kind of a zoomed in look here, you can see I've got the pins on the LED in two separate rails, and in the negative rail I've got a resistor running over to the negative rail. From that negative rail I've got a wire plugged into the ground pin on the Pi, or on the Arduino that is, and then coming out of the positive pins rail I've got another connector running over to port 8 on the Arduino. So for the next part of the tutorial you're going to need a USB 2.0 Type A to USB 2.0 Type B, and this is the same kind of cable that comes with most printers, so if you've got an extra one laying around or if one came with your Arduino kit, you're going to want to plug the more square side into your Arduino, and then the normal USB side into any port on your computer. So jumping back over into the Arduino IDE, we're ready to start writing the code that will let us turn this LED light on. So when you first open up a blank sketch or program, Arduino IDE calls them sketches, you'll see that it provides two pre-made functions, setup and loop. These are the functions executed by the chip on the Raspberry Pi. So setup is executed just once, and then loop is run over and over again until either the reset button's hit or the Arduino loses power. So in the setup there are a few things we need to do to get the pin ready to light up the LED. So the first thing we have to do is tell Arduino to use that pin that the positive lead of the LED is connected to as an output. So to do this we use the built-in function pin mode, then the number, in our case we used pin 8, and then what mode, output. So hitting save, we'll just name our sketch whatever, so let's call it LED test, hit save. Now into loop we're ready to write the main code for our program. So to turn the LED on, we want to turn the pin on so it supplies a positive current to the LED. So to do this, we use the function digital write. So if you remember, we plugged that LED's cable into pin 8, which is in the set of digital pins on the side of the Arduino that are controlled by the chip. So we need to tell it what pin, so 8, and then what mode. So when you're using world interactive devices like Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, a pin isn't on or off, it's either high or low, but it's basically, if it's got a high current, the pin is on. If it's got a low current, the pin is off. So we want to turn it on, so we're going to give it high. Then we want to wait a second, so we use the delay function, enter the time in milliseconds, so 1 second, then digital write 8, low, that's going to turn it off, and then delay another second. So what this is going to do, looking over our code, it's going to set pin 8 that we plug the LED into as an output. Then it's going to turn it on, wait a second, turn it off, wait a second, and it's going to repeat that until we reset the code or turn off the Arduino. So making sure your Arduino is plugged into your computer and the cable is connected to the Arduino, we can hit this upload button, and as long as all is well, you should see that it's done uploading down here. And now we can jump over and take a look at our diagram. So taking one last look at our circuit, we can see indeed it does work. It waits a second, turns the light on, waits a second, turns it off. And we can demonstrate this reset pin. If we just hit it, you can see it pauses a second, runs the setup loop, and then starts the main body, the looping body of the code over again. So this is useful for debugging if you need to check a step and make sure that the setup is being run properly, or if your program runs into an error, you can restart it at any point if you need to. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of my Getting Started with Arduino series. As usual, I'll be down in comments, so if you need help with anything or you have a question, comment, concern, let me know. Or if you just want to show off what you did, I'd be happy to take a look at it. I always love to see the stuff you're doing. Be sure to connect with me on Twitter, Google+, email, on my blog, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my coding tutorials or Arduino tutorials or anything. As always, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.